In today's video, we're going to be converting customary units of length. So let's start out our lesson with some vocabulary. First of all, let's talk about the difference between customary and metric. So first of all, this week we're only going to be dealing with customary units. Customary units are the ones that we use most often here in the United States. So those include inches, feet, yards, miles, also pounds, tons, ounces, and then gallons, quarts, pints, and cups. So converting is changing one unit of measurement into another unit, and for length we're going to be focusing on inches, feet, yards, and miles. So first of all, let's start out with your conversion sheet. So at the very beginning of the school year, you should have gotten a conversion sheet, an FSA conversion sheet, and glued it into your math notebook. This you are going to be using this whole entire week because it has the conversions already on there for you. So we're going to be using these conversions that are already there to solve problems. So you'll notice here that on the conversion that I have, it tells you how many inches are in a foot, how many feet are in a yard, and then how many feet and yards are in a mile. Alright, so we're going to start out with just some basic conversions, and we are going to start out going from bigger numbers to smaller numbers. The really important thing that you need to remember is that when we're going from a bigger number to a smaller number, you are always going to multiply. So our first problem here says 42 feet equals blank inches. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the problem. Now, the way that I like to set up my problems is by setting up right underneath that conversion what the actual conversion amount is. So I know that 1 foot equals, and I'm looking back to my conversion sheet, and I know 1 foot equals 12 inches. So I need to say to myself, okay, how many inches will make up 42 feet? Like I said before, when you're converting from a bigger number to a smaller number, you're going to multiply. If you think about it, if 12 inches make up 1 foot, a lot of inches are going to need to make up 42 feet. So of course we're going to have a bigger number. So what I have to do now is I have to multiply 42 times 12. Okay, and now we use our standard algorithm to solve this problem. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Drop that magic 0. 1 times 2 is 2, and 1 times 4 is 4. Add these all together, and I get 504. So 42 feet is 504 inches. Now, also something that I really want you to pay attention to and I want you to take note of is that whenever you're dealing with measurement, you are going to have to put a unit on the end of your number. And what I mean by that is that if this number or this problem didn't have this inches already here for us, I would have had to wrote in inches next to that 504. Because if you think about it, 504 what? 504 inches, 504 yards. I need to be specific when I'm talking about measurement. Alright, so let's look at our next problem. 31 miles equals blank yards. So like I said before, I'm going to set up what the actual conversion is underneath that. 1 mile equals 1,760 yards. And since a mile is bigger than a yard, we are going from bigger to smaller, so that means I need to multiply. So I'm going to multiply 1,760 by 31. So 1 times 0 is 0, 1 times 6, 1 times 7, 1 times 1, 3 times 0, 3 times 6 is 18, 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 more is 22, and 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 more is 5. I add all these together. I'm running out of room, so I'm going to write it over here. It's 0, 6, 7 plus 8 is 16, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 31 miles is 54,660 yards. All right, let's go from smaller to bigger. So if you think about it, if we went from bigger to smaller and we use multiplication, what operation do you think we will use going from smaller to bigger? That's right, we're going to use division. So let's look at our first problem here. 362 feet equals blank yards. So I'm going to go back to my conversion sheet because you can definitely use this when you're using any type of measurement. And I'm going to write the actual conversion right underneath the problem. How many feet equals 1 yard? Well, I know that 3 feet equals 1 yard. So that means I'm going to need to divide 362 divided by 3. And so if you think about this logically, if 3 feet equal 1 yard, 362 feet is going to give me a smaller amount of yards. So that means that I'm going to need to divide. Okay, so I'm going to use long division here to figure this out. 3 goes into 3 one time, subtract, and I get 0. Bring down the 6. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. And then I bring down the 2. 3 cannot go into 2, so I would put a 0 here to show that it cannot go into 2. So I'd have 120 yards, remainder 2. Now this is something really important that I want you to pay attention to. When I go to answer my question, I know that I have 120 yards, but what about this remainder 2 right here? Well, think about it. What unit was that 362 in to begin with? It was feet. So that means those 2 left over are still feet. So that means I have 120 yards with a remainder of 2, but the remainder of 2 is really 2 feet. So I have 120 yards and 2 feet left over. All right, so we're moving down to our next question, and I actually just quickly changed the question because now that I noticed that it really didn't make much sense. So now I have changed it a little bit. So our new question reads 2,428 inches equals blank feet. So right underneath that, I'm going to write the actual conversion. The actual conversion is 12 inches equals 1 foot. And since I'm going from a smaller amount to a bigger amount, I know that I'm going to need to divide. So I'm going to divide 2,428 by 12. All right, friends, pause the video and go ahead and solve this problem. When you're finished, replay the video and I will go over the answer with you. All right, friends, so I've gone ahead and I have solved this problem. So when I did all of my division here, I saw that my answer was 202 remainder 4. But remember what we said before about that leftover remainder? So when I go to write out my answer, I know that I have 202 feet, but I also have that remainder 4. I have 4 inches left over because that's what my original measurement was. Alright, so not every conversion that you are going to do is going to be just a straight up conversion. Sometimes you're going to have to use it in a word problem, and really this is the more real world application of this. So we're going to do a word problem together, and then you're going to do one on your own. So this word problem says, Tamika designed a bridesmaid dress for her wedding that required 4 yards of fabric. If there are 12 bridesmaids in her wedding, how many feet of fabric are needed to make all of the dresses? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to code this problem. There's a lot of information here, and I have a feeling that it's going to be more than one step. So first of all, let's figure out what is the problem asking us. It's asking us to find how many feet of fabric are needed to make all of the dresses. Okay, and then so I'll go back and I'll try to find my important and key information. So it says that one bridesmaid dress requires 4 yards of fabric. Okay, and then there are 12 bridesmaids in her wedding, which means that she is going to need 12 dresses. And then finally, it's asking us how many feet our fabric are needed to make all the dresses. So first of all, let's find out how many yards of fabric she will need for all of the dresses. So the way that I will figure that out is I will say, okay, if she needs 12 dresses and each are 4 yards, I'm going to multiply 12 by 4 to give me that answer. When I multiply those together, I get the answer 48. Now, this is the most important thing to remember when you're using measurement, is to check your units. The original unit said yards, so that means she needs 48 yards of fabric. But it's actually asking us how many feet will she need. So now we have to convert 48 yards into feet. Okay? And this is where, just like we did with the other problems, we go back to our conversion chart and we look to see what the actual conversion is. So first of all, I know that yards are bigger than feet. So that means that one yard equals 3 feet. And if I'm going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to come over here to my side and I'm going to do 48 yards times 3 feet. 24, 12, 14. Tamika will need 144 feet of fabric for her dress. Alright, so let's do this, or actually you're going to do this last problem on your own. Joy and 2 friends ran 2 miles each. How many feet did they run all together? Go ahead and pause the video, code this problem first to find out what it's asking you, and then solve the problem. You can replay the video again to check your work. Alright, so hopefully you finished the problem now. Let's get back to solving. So let me pull out the most important information. So Joy and 2 friends ran 2 miles each. So that means altogether there are 3 people running the mile. And then it says that they each ran 2 miles. So they each ran 2 miles. How many feet did they run all together? So first of all, I'm going to find out how many miles they ran all together. And the way that I would do that is by multiplying 3 times 2, which is 6. So I know that Joy and her 2 friends ran 6 miles all together. Now the question is asking us how many feet did they run all together. So I have to set up my conversion. 6 miles equals how many feet? I know from my conversion chart that 1 mile equals 5,280 feet. And I'm going from a bigger to a smaller, so I need to multiply. So 5,280 times 6, 0, 48, 6 times 2 is 12, plus 4 more is 16, and then 30 plus 1 is 31. So altogether, Joy and her friends ran 31,680 feet. Alright friends, it is now time to go on Canvas and take the quiz. Good luck, and don't forget your conversion sheet.